welcome to South Shore Piano, the official podcast of the South Shore Piano School. I'm your host, Jonathan Roberts, and on this podcast, we talk with students, parents, teachers, and other leaders to find out exactly how music education is changing lives every day. I am thrilled to have as my guest today the one and only Kirsten Oberoi. Kirsten is the choral director at Ahern Middle School and the artistic director and co-founder of the South Shore Children's Chorus right here in Quincy, Massachusetts, with another location they just started recently in Sharon, Massachusetts. The organization has been around since 2016 and now serves nearly 100 students, or I think over 100 students, between 3 different choirs. So exciting. Kirsten, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, John.
So Kirsten, I have to ask, take me to the beginning. I've had the honor and pleasure of working with you on a number of occasions, and you can feel the passion and the excitement in the rehearsals and the performances every time. So I just have to ask, take me to the beginning. What got you so passionate about children's choir?
That is a good question. What got me so passionate? Well, when I moved back to Boston after college, I grew up in Quincy. I'm a native. And I had an experience in San Diego where I was working for San Diego Children's Choir, and it was a great experience. And then my fiance at the time and I moved, and we moved back to the area, and I had gotten a job with a different children's chorus. And that children's chorus and I shared very different philosophies of music education and how that can be powered in students' lives. And that ended up being such a poor fit that I didn't last very long, and I ended up leaving after only 2 months in the job. I left the organization after our first concert after about 2 months. And it was something that was really difficult for me in my life because I realized that, I am not interested in helping students become the top performer and fight their way, but rather that I wanted them to work together as a team, and I wanted music to be something that was accessible to anyone, whether or not they could afford private lessons or had any previous training. And because of that, I was like, well, I guess I'll just have to start my own thing because my idea is so strong and my philosophy, I can't work outside my philosophy. So I guess I'll have to create a place for me to work within it. And I thought my hometown would be a great place to start.
That's so powerful. Before you had these experiences, did you have a sense that you were going to go into the children's choir field or work with children?
That is definitely something I wanted to do. I actually started after college all in the nonprofit sector and only got my school job when I moved to Boston. And then I started to have passions for both nonprofit work and in school, public school teaching. And both offer such different aspects of music education. And who you're teaching and your purposes for teaching them. And so I think it's been a really neat thing to balance both.
That's so cool. If I could ask one question, you mentioned that you worked with this other organization where your philosophies differed. I think you touched on it. I'm wondering if you could speak to that a little bit more, just what you it sounds like you weren't, it didn't fit what you were looking for personally out of education, but it sounds like it also didn't really exist much anywhere else. So you decided, okay, I'm going to create this thing. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to that, how your philosophies sort of differ from whatever the status quo, I'll say, for lack of a better term.
Sure. One of the biggest things about South Shore Children's Chorus that I actually have not seen yet, it's possible that it exists, but I haven't seen it, is there is a no audition policy at South Shore Children's Chorus. There's no audition whatsoever necessary. You just sign up, show up, and that's a big thing for me because my job is to teach you. My job is not to, say, okay, you already have this gift, so you have the ability or the ethic or the attitude to come study with me, but rather it's, if you want to do this and you have setbacks, my training is helping you do that. And so that can be a real struggle when I have interviewed conductors to come work for my organization. One of the most common answers is, well, what about even just a voice placement? Do we get to meet them beforehand? And the answer is no. You get what you get, and you don't get upset. These kids signed up for a reason. You don't sign up for outside chorus unless you want to sing. So, for me, that's super, super strong. And I've had a lot of students join my program who are extremely shy of auditions, afraid of auditions, who don't think they're very good at singing, who just want to try singing, that have never done anything in music before, and they end up staying for a really long time because they don't have that initial hurdle. I think one of the things about my philosophy is there are several television shows and several things in the media with YouTube and whatnot that say, okay, go on stage, and if you have a talent, then 4 people will ring a buzzer if they think you're good enough. And unfortunately, that model has really infected most of the public and what they think about music education. I mean, I've had parents with singers as young as 4, 6, 7, 8 ask me if I think their child is talented enough to continue singing. And to me, that's laughable. Of course they are, they're 8. But that's not what people in the public think. And I can't look down on those parents for thinking that, because when you see on a popular talk morning show a 5-year-old singing an operatic aria, and you look at your kid and they can't even sing the right pitch, this is what we're comparing our children to. And to anyone who's listening, I would just encourage you that if you find the right teacher, anyone can be taught anything. And
absolutely,
that's something that is not present, especially the non-audition thing, in a lot of organizations.
So it's true access to anybody who wants to be a part of this.
Absolutely. We've never turned a child away due to experience or finances or anything.
I love it. And I totally hear what you mean. So, because I think most of society thinks that when somebody succeeds at this, it's this divine presence, this talent thing. And that's just not true, is it? It's skill building. It's, anybody can do it with the right teacher and putting in the time. And one thing I've always been impressed about with South Shore Children's Chorus is that you seem to really be teaching them skills. They're not just showing up and you're kind of cramming the notes down their throat to produce a concert. You're actually teaching them sort of, all the skills. I wanted to ask if you could speak to that, because I know a lot of these kids, they come in for their rehearsals, but they also have some theory classes, is my understanding. Could you talk me through a little bit of that? So say somebody shows up as a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old in one of the younger choirs, and they sort of work their way up. What does their journey with you look like?
Sure, absolutely. Literacy is another big part of my philosophy for my children's chorus. I think of music, and music is often compared to a language.
Yeah.
However, when we teach children to read English, we don't just teach them a book, tell them to memorize that book, and then move on.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, when you teach musicians music or a song without teaching them the literacy behind the song, you're teaching them the smallest fraction of the language. You're teaching them one thing, and that cannot be generalized. But I think it also comes from people not knowing how to teach theory or literacy in a way that is accessible and not jargonized for the students sitting in front of them.
Yes.
It can be so hard, especially in a chorus situation where the kid's taken piano for 7 years, but then you've got the kid sitting next to him that doesn't know anything.
Right.
And has never even looked at sheet music, but has sung in musicals his whole life. And, you know, maybe piano kid can read anything, but musical theater kid has really, really great resonance and confidence when singing. And so for me, it's really important to balance these things out, but to give them not only pieces of literature and repertoire of what we do, but literally literacy is the key to being able to unlock whenever you want. So our journey through South Shore Children's Chorus, we have groups all the way down to kindergarten. Okay. Our training choir right now is kindergarten through third grade. And those students learn through games. And they have song games, and they have dances, and they have hand clap games, and they just have so much fun, which is the goal. We want them to be able to enjoy community music together with peers of their own age. This is also really important. I get a lot of questions from parents who have a child who loves to sing, and they say, should we put this, we're looking for voice lessons for our child. And unfortunately, a child's voice at that age is not ready for voice lessons.
Definitely.
You know, we teach, unlike, you know, teaching the piano or teaching a trumpet, we are actually teaching an instrument that we as humans are growing. Right. What we eat that day, how we exercise, all of that has immense impact on our bodies. And a child's vocal folds are so small that singing solo for even a half hour under the duress and pressure of voice lessons can be really damaging. So what we encourage is that they sing in unison with other students their age. It's a Kadai-based system, and if you don't know what Kadai is, it's an amazing, wonderful musical education system that teaches students pitch and relative pitch and all of these wonderful things. And what I love about our training choir directors in South Shore Children's Chorus is their patience.
Yes.
We have actually had students who come to us, and we had one particular student who came to us in kindergarten, and he did not sing until halfway through first grade. He sat in the class and he was fine. He was well behaved, but he just sat and listened and did the motions, but he didn't really sing. And then all of a sudden there was just a day in the middle of first grade, and he opened his mouth and out came some perfectly beautiful song. And I think that's important to remember, is sometimes it takes a while, and that's important to know.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that was a cool day. And then our intermediate choir has the music theory classes before and after. That's where they start from 4th to 7th grade. Okay. And they start learning really, really basic music theory. Theory can sound like a scary word. We've actually been considering naming that something different. I think we were talking about sight singing skills or musicianship skills.
Oh, I like that.
Because theory can be a scary word for some people. It's not theory. It's fun. It's what can we learn from the music, written music that's in front of us? How can we? A lot of that class is repertoire based.
Uh-huh.
So we're looking at the repertoire that they're singing, and we're pulling things from that repertoire and saying, look, you know how this sounds. Let's dive deeper into it, which I think is a really important part of literacy in an ensemble setting.
Definitely.
And then sight singing is the class that happens both before and after advanced choir. We have 4 different levels that we break the 8th through 12th graders up into.
Okay.
That those 4 levels really depend on the kids in the group. I kind of take a look at them. I make educated guesses, but I can move them where they need be. And it can get really intense when they get to the 12th grade. But the hope is by the time they graduate that they're pretty confident sight readers, and they can look at music and really kind of understand what's going on, and how, more importantly, not just understand what's going on, but how to make themselves produce those sounds as accurately as possible, as soon as possible, which really helps their confidence when looking at a page. Because again, unlike a trumpet player, unlike a violinist, you're not looking at just your part. You're looking at a lot of black dots on that page, and determining even just which ones are the ones you're supposed to be singing can be a trick.
Right. Definitely. What I love about this is that what you said about the theory being directly applicable to what they're doing in the chorus, because I think so often those of us that took theory classes in college or whenever, it's like you're learning all this stuff, but not learning quite how much it directly applies to what you're doing, almost like you're getting ready for the big game and then never playing it, if that makes sense. So I find that so cool. Now, there's no audition to be in your ensembles, but the concerts that I've been a part of and I've witnessed, I've always been blown away because it's to me, it's like professional level results here. Like your choices of repertoire are really cool. It's not just singing like folk tunes and so on. So how do you feel like you produce that? I mean, I know that's a big question.
A lot of luck. No, I'm a true believer in it's a healthy balance. I guess the best way to kind of explain how I make it work is what I tell the students. I have what I call the bar rule.
Okay.
There's a lot of people, you have the saying, raise the bar. I always aim, I tell them at the beginning of every rehearsal, I always aim for just above where I think you can reach. However,
Yes.
Your goal is to meet my expectation. The only rule is that once you're here, you don't get to live down here anymore. You don't get to live there. And once they're here, what do I have to do? Well, I have to then bring the bar up and push you to here.
Yes.
And that just continues its journey. But it can be really challenging. I've done it. I've picked a piece of repertoire that's unfortunately here. And I think, they might be able to get there. And that's where, between here and here, that's called frustration land.
Right. So when the repertoire is accidentally too difficult for what they can handle comfortably.
Yes. And that creates frustration land between the bar of where they can really be and where you're aiming towards. So there's a lot of pressure on me, and I spend a lot of time looking at music that will do what I need it to do for the students. But it's a lot of it's luck, and a lot of it is students act differently when you expect of them.
Yes.
When I hand them a piece of music, one of my favorite pieces I've done a couple of pieces that are unusual. Help me with the term when it's not written in actual notation, like
by rote.
Pictograph or
okay.
Things like that.
Yeah, there's a word for that. Is it aleatoric?
Yeah, I've done
Something
some
like that.
aleatoric music, but that kind of thing, really out of the box stuff.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things to do is to hand it to them and just see their reaction. And they just look at me and they're like, what is this?
Yes.
But really what it comes down to is there's a trust there. When I don't always aim too high and I break things that are slightly challenging down for them, they trust that whatever I'm going to hand them is going to be cool, is going to be fun, and is going to be challenging, but they're going to be able to do it.
Yes.
And it's important for me to not break that trust.
Definitely. I love the theme. And it's come up in the last couple episodes, this idea of finding that sweet spot of what's just challenging enough to help students find, they call it the flow state. If you're familiar with that, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's flow state, or being in the zone, where it's like just that right amount of challenge that makes it this almost out of body experience, maybe not out of body experience, but this transcendent experience where they're being pushed and enjoying it and just totally in the zone. And it's so cool that you're tuned in so well to that. And over time, yeah, they know that you're going to deliver, and it's going to be a much more remarkable experience than what parents have. Parents shown up to sort of to these concerts of South Shore Children's Chorus kind of expecting one thing, and then they're kind of like blown out of their seats by what they hear.
Yeah, I've gotten that quite a bit, especially in the past, our most recent concerts, especially from parents who enroll their child in one of the younger groups, which is the whole reason that I make sure that all of my groups are on the same concert. The training choir parents come in and they listen to their kids every week, and it's so much fun and blah, blah, blah. And then they see the advanced choir perform and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. So X leads to Y? That's what you're telling me? Like, if I leave my kid in here, like they're going to get to that. And I'm like, yes, X does lead to Y. When they're playing all these crazy games in training choir, eventually it leads to that.
I love it. So they can see what's in store for their child in the future. Do the younger kids have an opportunity to interact with the older kids?
Sometimes. We do a lot of that at dress rehearsals, and at concerts, we always do a combined piece. We do a lot of combined activities during our summer camp.
Okay.
And that's our middle level group and our older level group. We do like icebreakers and guest speakers where they're actually interacting a lot more during the summer and sort of building that relationship. I'll never forget a student of mine who was in he was a 7th grade boy, and one of my 11th or 12th grade boys at the time apparently said to him after our concert in the 7th grade that he did a good job. And then that same grade boy turned into a 9th grade boy and told that story to the whole group. And he said, I continued singing because that cool kid from the advanced choir told me I did a good job.
I love it. You never know what little thing is going to get kids hooked. Very cool. So you see so many kids each week, and we know that especially the kind of community you're creating creates major positive change in kids' lives. Are there any, and I'm putting you on the spot here, are there any student stories that kind of stick out in your mind as being especially sort of representative of that? Somebody who's been sort of permanently altered by their experience with you in South Shore Children's Choir?
So when I first started my choir in 2016, my advanced choir, I had a young sophomore, and he knows this story because I tell this story about him all the time. And I only had about 14 kids in the group at the time.
Wow.
And he sang bass for me, and he was a giant pain. I couldn't get him. He didn't understand the significance of it. He sang because his friends sang, and he was fine. He was never rude. He was never unkind. But he would ask me if he could check the score of the game on his phone every 4.5 minutes. And getting him to hold his music up was literally a battle every single week. Just, trying to keep a positive attitude and battling this kid. Positive attitude, battle the kid. And that happened for a while. That student then grew and grew through work, and by his junior and senior year was sitting up a little straighter and answering questions in music theory, and was really interested and whatnot. And then all of a sudden his senior year, I would get texts in our group chat of South Shore Children's Chorus upperclassmen for reminders and whatnot. I would get texts that say, oh, and by the way, I was listening to this choral piece. You guys should listen to it. It's really cool. I found it on Spotify. I'm like, you were what? You were doing what?
Awesome.
Sir? And now that same student is a vocal performance minor at URI.
Wow.
And he's studying vocal performance. And I love to remind him at any chance I get about that little sophomore who I could not get to hold up music. And I've had him in choirs. I've had him sing with my husband in his professional and semi-professional groups. And you look and you see this kid and his music's right there, holding it up at his face level. And anytime I see that kid, I call him a kid, he's almost 20 now, but anytime that kid holds his music up and I see him holding music up, I just consider that a personal win.
That is remarkable. Very cool. Looking ahead into the future of South Shore Children's Chorus, what's your dream? What's your long-term vision for this organization?
My long-term vision is, anyone who knows me, I go big or go home. I don't go small.
That's very clear. Yes.
Going small is just not my deal. It's never been my deal, and it will never be my deal. What I'd really like to see is, and what I've kind of been on the hunt for lately, is South Shore Children's Chorus to have its own dedicated rehearsal and office space.
Yeah. And
to have 3 or 4 satellite locations where rehearsals are held on a weekly basis. Where then everyone comes together once a month to rehearse. Dear people of the South Shore, we need a concert hall. Just throwing that out there if anybody's listening.
Yes, if anybody wants to make a donation.
Anyone, we need a concert hall, because our last concert we had over 500 audience members and only 1 bathroom at the church that we performed at. So, we were growing before the pandemic. We were growing really, really rapidly, and I'd love to see that continue. But in order to make that happen, we're consistently looking for help, especially when it comes to board members. So if anyone's listening and you feel the spirit and you're like, I would love to donate some time and some resources to helping South Shore Children's Chorus get back up on its feet, we would accept the help readily. We do have a couple of positions open on our board. And so if you feel called to give me a shout, please do not hesitate.
Definitely. And we'll include some links in the show notes so that they know how to get in touch with you as soon as possible if they are interested. And if anybody's listening to this and wants to have their kids enrolled in your program, what are the next steps for them? Where can they find you?
They can check out information at our website, www.sscchorus.org. And on that, there's a contact us button. And if you fill out that form, it'll go straight to me, and I'll get back to you as soon as we're kind of in a bit of limbo right now, trying to figure out, with everything going the way it is in the state, trying to figure out, do we reopen for a bit this spring? Do we reopen for summer camp? Do we start fresh in the fall? So we're in a little bit of limbo right now, but anyone who fills out that form will get the latest of information as soon as it's available.
Very cool. Kirsten, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I just love your mission, your passion, your energy, and thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you for having me, John.
Thank you so much to all of our listeners out there. Again, this is South Shore Piano, the official podcast of the South Shore Piano School. If you enjoyed this, do hit the subscribe button on your podcast app, or if you're checking us out on the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you're among the first to find out about new episodes as they're released. We publish new episodes every Monday and Friday. I'm Jonathan Roberts, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.